Hey everyone, so I have my Blade 150S here. Today I'm going to show you how to level the swash plate on this little guy. And this is if you've been in a crash and had to replace parts, you should always try to level your swash plate to get a nice level flight. Now this one is the older version. It's not the smart version which has telemetry, but mechanically it seems like they're the same helicopter. The only difference is they kind of did a receiver update on the newer one, which gives it all kinds of telemetry, whereas this one doesn't have that. But mechanically, this process should be the same for both helicopters. All right, so I'm going to show you two methods of doing this. One is essentially with zip ties, which you can get at pretty much any hardware store, Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever. And then the second method is using a swash plate leveling tool. So pros and cons, well, with this one you have to have the tool, that's number one. So it's more expensive, and you have to actually disassemble the head. Now with the swash plate method, with the zip tie method, you do not have to disassemble the head, but at the same time you do have to, create your little zip tie tool, and I'll show you how to do that. Or at least I'll show you what it looks like. It's not really rocket science. All right, so with that said, I'm going to do the zip tie version first, and I'm going to put that together and show you how it's done. All right. All right, so I've got my swash plate leveling zip tie tool built. I'll show you what it looks like real fast. It's pretty simple. So it's really just two zip ties attached to one another, and the main zip tie is attached to the main mast of the helicopter. So it looks like this. And the basic idea is it's going to brush over these swash plate linkages and test their height. And that's pretty much how it works. You go over all three. Now, of course, it's not going to do, it's not going to give me a good, any kind of a good measurement right now because the helicopter's not powered on. So the first thing I've got to do now is get the servos to where they think the swash plate should be level. So let's do that now. So what I'm going to do is turn on my transmitter.
Warning, hold mode. Normal mode.
All right, so I'm going to power on the helicopter. Make sure the throttle's down. Wait for it to initialize. All right, so this workbench is pretty level, and that's how I'm going to do it. This workbench should be level enough to make the servos think that they should go as to where they would level the swash plate. And I wouldn't do this method with larger helicopters, but these smaller ones, it seems to be good enough. Now, what else you want to do is get your transmitter. You want to turn off all
low rate, high rate,
dual rates. You want to turn all your dual rates and expo off. So I just put everything on full rates. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put it back onto hold mode.
Hold mode.
Because I want to power up the throttle. If you can't do that for whatever reason, you may have to take the main motor cables connectors out so it can't power up. Because now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring the collective and the throttle up to 50%. And there you go. We're at 50%. And now the helicopter pretty much thinks everything should be level. And what we can do, we can take these measurements without messing with it by essentially very carefully removing the battery. And now
normal mode.
The servos are pretty much in the same place, and now we can rotate the swash plate testing tool to figure out where everything should be. So this one is just barely touching. Bend it up a little bit. So that one's just barely touching. You can see that. Then we go to this one and it's just barely touching. It's pretty much the same condition. You can see that again. if it goes. But now we go to this last one, and I know how it is. This last one is off. It's way too low. See how low it is? So that one's low. This one is a little bit high. See, because it's actually physically touching it. How do I show you that? See? And now the other one up there, the other side. Let me see how you can see that. Yeah. If you can see, it's touching that one too. Well, now it just barely made it over. So it seems like these two are right on. And this one back here is a little low. And this is the one, this is the servo that we changed, and that's what it drives. So obviously it's a little off. And that's why it's off, because we changed out that servo. So at this point, you pretty much just keep repeating the process. You're going to take this off, and pop that out. And in this case, because it's low, I'm going to unscrew that linkage a little bit and basically bring it up. And keep doing this and keep testing it with this little tool here. And that's generally how I do it. Like I said, I wouldn't use this method for large helicopters, large expensive helicopters, but for these small little micro helis, it seems to work out just fine. And that's how I do it. All right, so now we're going to level the swash plate with the actual swash plate leveling tool. So first off, I did have to take the head off, as you see it right here. It wasn't very hard. I just had one screw that goes through the head and through the main shaft, and then these two linkages here. That's it, if you can see them hanging. I don't know if you can. And just those two linkages, and then I pulled it right off the helicopter, and that was it. I did level the swash plate by leveling the helicopter and getting the servos where they think that they're level, or at least it thinks they should be level. So how you use this tool is pretty simple. After you get the head off, you just very carefully put it on, and it just slides right down, just like the head would slide onto the helicopter. And I was careful not to let these servos move around too much after I leveled it by putting it on a level surface. And if you notice, it's pretty much just like the zip tie tool, except it just slides right down there, and it's like having 3 zip ties instead of just one. So if you notice, the first two are right on. They both are pretty much touching. So they're pretty much, you know, right where they should be. And then the last one here is low. And if you remember, it was the exact same case with the zip ties. The first two were right on, and the back one was low. So what that shows is, even with a more official tool here, I got the exact same results from the zip ties and this tool. So you can pretty much use either one. You'll get, you can easily level this swash plate with either method. It's just that I find this one easier, and yeah, this is just the one I happen to prefer, but they're pretty much doing the exact same thing, and I'm getting the same results. So it really shows how well both methods work. Now, after this, what I'm going to do is pretty much, I'm going to put the helicopter down, and now you're going to power on your transmitter. You're going to plug in your battery. Wait for that to come up. Now that moved, so I'm going to be very careful to bring it back down. There it is. Now, same thing. Put this on hold for me.
Hold mode.
Once again, you may have to remove your motor connectors if you can't level it on hold. Turn your DR and expo off if you can. And now bring the collective and throttle up to 50%. And once again, I'm gonna make sure it's good there. And it looks pretty good. A lot of times I'll just level it with it running. So I'll look and I'll realize that this one's low. Keep it on the bench and just get down and look, and you know, look across the bench and see which ones are touching and which ones are not. I know this one's low. So at this point I would kind of just leave it as it is and pull the swash plate tool off and take this part off. And while it's still running, I'd pop this link off and I guess I'm going to unscrew it a few times, put it back on, and do the same thing. Put the thing right back on, the leveling tool, and then keep doing that over and over again until I get all three at pretty much the same level. And remember, you want it at 50% when you do this, collective, and you pretty much just got to get all the, you got to get it touching on all 3 points. And another thing, let me pull this off now, I don't need this running. You're supposed to have about a 90-degree angle on each one of these. Let me get a good, let me see, which one can you see the best? It is that one. You really want to get, no, there. Don't know how to show that to you. You really want to get like right here. See, from this servo arm to here, you really want to get 90-degree angle on this. A nice square angle right there. That's generally what it's supposed to be, but in most cases it's not going to be perfect, especially with these smaller helis. The splines just aren't accurate enough. So with larger helis it's very important to get that, but for these you just want to get as close as you can. And that's pretty much what you're going to do. You're just going to keep doing it over and over again and just get all 3 points at the same, so they all touch. And make sure that you don't unscrew anything too much where it's going to actually pop off. That could be a real issue too. You don't want anything coming apart in flight. And that's pretty much how you adjust your linkages, and that's about it. All right, so really quickly, this is how it should look. I just went through the process and you could see the front 2 are touching, and now the rear is touching as well. If you can see that, yeah. That's pretty much it. Once again, I got the servos to where they think they should be level, and now they are level, where at least the swash plate is. And then I very carefully unplugged it, and that's because otherwise I couldn't pick the helicopter up. That's why I keep doing that. But usually I do almost the whole process while it's running, especially these where you could just pop them right off. Whereas this one you might have to power your heli down to get this apart. All right, I just wanted to show that off, and I've got one other thing to show you too. One other way of checking things. All right. All right, I had one other thing to add. Whenever you put your collective at 50%, as we were, one thing you want to do is generally have the blades as they're folded over like this. Instead of having them like this or something, they should be very much close together. Now that doesn't technically have anything to do with swash plate leveling, but you really do want to keep everything balanced. You really want to have about 0 degree, somewhere close to 0 degree pitch at 50% collective. And you can tell that it's at 0 degree pitch at 50% if the blades essentially line up just like this. So they're just kind of overlapping each other. And if they're off, the way you adjust that is simply by adjusting every linkage the same amount. So if you want it to go up or down, you would turn each linkage maybe 1 or 2 turns. So you do 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. You'd always do the same. And then the swash plate leveling would stay the same as long as you turn all of these the exact same amount of turns. Whether they're half turns or full turns, it doesn't matter. And that'll allow you to adjust where your 0 degree pitch is at 50% collective. And that's the last thing. All right, thanks for watching. I hope all this helps.